Globus-enabled systems. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. With the Globus platform, you can easily incorporate robust capabilities. And if the data is sensitive, no problem. Globus can be used to manage protected data. With Globus, you can easily share your data without having to move it or copy it. With Globus, subscribers can easily move and share. And if you have any more questions about Globus, visit Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus.
Secret destroyers hold you up to the flames. And what do I get for my pain? cage. Despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a Despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a Despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a Despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a cage. Tell me I'm the only one. Tell me there's no other one. Jesus wasn't only son for you. And I still believe that I cannot be saved. And I still believe that I cannot be saved. And I still believe that I cannot be saved. And I still believe that I cannot be saved.
It doesn't hurt me. Do you wanna feel how it feels? Do you wanna know that it doesn't hurt me? Do you wanna hear about the deal they're making? It's you and me. If only could make a deal with God and get him to swap out the leases. We're running on that road, we're running on that hill, we're running on that building. See if only crawling in my skin. These wounds they will not heal. We're running on that road. Fear is how I fall, confusing what is real. See if only See if only
Come on, baby. Come on, darling. Let me steal this moment from you now. Come on, angel. Come on, darling. Let's exchange the experience. You don't wanna hurt me. Let's see how deep the bullet lies. Unaware that I'm tearing you asunder. And there's thunder in our hearts, baby. There's so much hate for the ones we love. Tell me we both matter, don't we? You and me. You and me won't be unhappy.
If only could make a deal with God and get him to swap out leases. We're running up that road, we're running up that hill, we're running up that building. See if only crawling in my
Looking good. What up, though? If I only could make a deal, get 'em to swap our places, running up their road. Diggy, diggy hole. Oh, what a day, what a day. What a day, what a day. Mm-hmm. Do. Yeah, shit is pretty wild, man. Can we have a day where, like, shit isn't wild? Just like one day. One day. Apparently not, no. Oh. All right. So I was reading the book some more. The alignment problem. And like, I've been saying that AI serves as a reflection of humanity, right? Like an unvarnished reflection of what we put into it. And in reading this book, there is, they keep talking about how when they implement these different units, whether they be like in a robotic form, or whether they are, you know, like a chat bot, when they run them with some kind of point structure, okay, then what they get repeatedly is an outcome other than what was intended. So, like, to give you an example, this team made a robot for one of those robot competitions. And the idea behind the robot is that it was supposed to play soccer, right? But if you reward the robot only when it scores goals, then it basically has to flail around at the ball and just randomly push the ball until such a time as the ball goes into the net. Because that's the only reward system it functions under. So what they do is they put in these like intermediate points, right? It is like when you play a video game, there's the end goal that you're trying to get to, like on a level of Mario Brothers, right? Like or Super Mario. the end goal is to get to the flag at the end of the thing. But there are little goals that you can hit in the meantime to know, like, you get feedback, positive feedback for accomplishing these goals, right? Like you get coins, you stomp on the things, all that good stuff. So they had to simulate that for the robot. And what they did was they programmed the robot to earn a small number of points as it moved towards the goal, right? So the thinking of the humans is that, okay, we're going to do this. It's going to earn points as it goes towards the goal, and then it's going to earn the big points when it, puts the goal in the net, and everyone's happy. What ended up actually happening is that the robot moved next to the ball and then proceeded to vibrate, right? Because from the robot's point of view, even though the points it gets for advancing the ball are much less than what it gets if it puts it in the goal, the act of moving forward just a little bit earns it a, let's say for argument's sake and for ease of discussion, a point, right? And then it moves back a little bit and then moves forward and then it moves back and moves forward. So every one of those dings up a point. There's another story in the book where person who works in machine learning, they have a child, and the child has their little dustpan, little broom, right? And there were some chips on the floor, and the kid cleaned up the chips, and the parents say, "Hey, good job cleaning that up," give the kid praise for doing something you like. And then after the praise was done, the kid dumped the dustpan onto the floor and to sweep it up again, right? Because the shortest distance between this moment in praise is to sweep it up, right? So what that leads us to is the concept that of rewarding states of the world as opposed to the actions of an agent, right? If the robot that plays soccer moves forward a little bit and gains a point, but moves backwards a little bit and loses a point, that's a net zero, so there's no incentive then for it to move backwards, right? There's actually a penalty in that regard. It's paying attention to the state of the world, deciding what the state of the world you want to be is, and then rewarding that state of the world, right? The difference between praising the child for sweeping up the chips and giving praise for, the clean floor. And again, how this applies as a mirror is the idea of, perverse incentives and exploitative loops as they apply to like business, finance. We don't reward the state of the world. They get rewards by executing these actions that could in fact be counter to everything that we would want. And this is failing to adjust the mechanisms of the way that capitalism functions over time. You know, the concept of regulation and things like that. What usually you see when a company, let's take BP, British Petroleum, they spilled a bunch of oil in the Gulf of Mexico. They paid a penalty. That penalty was significantly less than their profits. And so, by the logic of business, it makes sense to do what they have done and just pay the penalty. It is cheaper to pay the penalty than whatever it costs to do the things a different way. The thing with the railroad in Ohio, it is going to cost the company less to clean up the mess, pay off the people, any penalties that the EPA might levy against them. That is going to be cheaper than upgrading their braking system to a more modern system, which is, at the moment, what we understand has contributed to the accident there. This is going to continue to happen because in AI, when the robot wasn't putting the ball in the goal, they made adjustments to the program so that it would do so. If we don't do that, then the agent has no incentive to change. And it's just that, it's that simple. This isn't even like, I'm not judging capital in these 5 minutes. I'm not making some leftist Marxist argument. I'm saying from the point of view of capital, it will always make more sense to do the less expensive thing based on current conditions. There's some other stuff I want to get into here where I think I have to draw so that you have a visual reference of what I'm looking at and talking about. So I think I'm going to save those for tomorrow. Because again, what happens with this book is I start listening to it, right? And he says things, and then I am compelled to take notes, right, of tangential issues, tangential thoughts related to what he's talking about at that point in time. There's if you've been in Levelhead's chat, Levelhead uses a bot in there called ButtSpot. Okay, and ButtSpot is a very simple bot. As far as I know, it just seemingly randomly picks out a chat that you might make, right? and repeats it again, but changes words or syllables to the word but, B-U-T-T, but, right? And sometimes it makes jokes, right? And like they're funny because, you know, of the but being in there, right? But jokes are funny. And you have the ability to say butt spot yes, butt spot no, and butt spot will then, like, so you say something, butt spot does its thing. You say butt spot yes, it responds back with a smiley emoji, right? But as far as I can tell, now I really should do more research on it. But as far as I can tell, it doesn't learn anything. And I feel like something like that would be a real, you know, asset to training a better butt spot, right? For whatever you could do with that. Because simply having people available to respond to the bot with simple commands, it could theoretically learn to tell better jokes, right? It would be able to compare the words and make a better decision. Now, it's possible that's completely beyond the capabilities of a chat bot for Twitch. I don't know. I don't know what the capabilities of a chat bot for Twitch are. I know that there are ones where you can, like, you know, create tasks and lists and play Pokemon and that kind of thing. Like there is an availability to do something. It's definitely something I want to look into more. On the subject before this about you know, short-term and long-term rewards. There's a game that I played. I recently finished Far Cry 5. And one of the things that I liked about Far Cry 5 was that I had the ability to, like, you don't you might have the desire to play a video game, but you don't have the time, you know. Is what I like about Minecraft. I could sit down and play Minecraft for 5 minutes, right? I can sit down and play Minecraft for 5 hours. It's the same with Far Cry 5. And I could, you know, do a quick little mission. I could run around and do some stuff. I could just move, you know, from place to place. I could set myself up for doing a longer mission and still feel like I was like accomplishing something, you know. Or I could sit there and I could rock out a whole bunch of missions and play for 5 hours. And I think like there needs to be more of that based on how humans react to, you know, a reward type learning system, right? Not just in video games, like, and I don't necessarily want to go as far as gamification, right? But there's really like You know when you go to work on a Monday and or Tuesday, what have you, and you're like early part of the week, or if you get paid every 2 weeks, the early part of that 2 week period, like that is the worst time because you are so far off from your reward. And it's almost like it's never gonna come at that point, right? Because there's actually they did a test. Um, there, I think it was Amazon runs the Mechanical Turk project, where you can wait, look, you can make money. Yeah, okay. So it's Amazon's Mechanical Turk. Um, is a crowdsourcing marketplace that makes it easier for individuals and businesses to outsource their processes and jobs to a distributed workforce who could perform these tasks virtually. This could include anything from conducting simple data validation and research to more subjective tasks like survey participation, content moderation, and more. MTurk enables companies to harness the collective intelligence, skills, and insights from a global workforce to streamline business processes, augment data collection and analysis, and accelerate machine learning development. Now, what this all does is that you can sign up, you can participate in the whatever, right? You will get some sort of thing that you need to do, and then you will get paid for it, right? And the pay is garbage, based on what I could tell. Because, for instance, in this case that they were doing, this study, they said they had like 5 essays, and if you completed all 5 essays, you got $20. What up, Igloo? And it's subjective, right? But as far as I am concerned, like if it takes me longer than an hour, I'm losing money, right? Like it's not worth my time to make less than $20 an hour. So to me, I feel like the money is garbage and they could offer you more. But that notwithstanding, what they found out was that when they offered the $20 at the end, that like 30% of people finished, and there was a significant amount that never even started. But when they offered incentives, little rewards throughout the process, then they had an 84% completion rate, which is significant. So this is, like the meme is the pizza party at work, right? But the pizza party makes sense to capital to do what we want, right? People like pizza. people like feeling appreciated by being given stuff and giving people food. Like when someone has a funeral, somebody, dies, anything where the people within that household need to really not be thinking about making food, right? We bring them food. The welcome to the neighborhood. We made you some cookies, right? Like any of that kind of stuff. Because people like food. We love food. But what happens is that it becomes divorced from its relevance. The concept of rewarding your workers for being good workers becomes divorced from actually showing appreciation. We just had Valentine's Day, right? And Valentine's Day is not something that my wife and I do. But then on that Monday, the day before, I saw a flower at the store. If we give each other flowers, we give each other like living plants, rather than the corpses of the fallen. And so I got her a plant and I gave it to her for Valentine's Day, just cause. And then she got me a heart sponge candy. You can't see it because I ate the shit out of it. But it was like a big ass. And if you've never had sponge candy, you don't know what you're missing. But sometimes, depending on where you get it, it can be a crapshoot. Now, basically, sponge candy is made by boiling sugar and then pouring it into a form where it cools, and you end up with like bubbles made out of sugar, and then you cut that into pieces, and then you dip it in chocolate, and then you eat that shit, and it's amazing. My favorite is orange chocolate. I'm not a huge fan of orange chocolate in general, but orange chocolate sponge candy is the shit. Because of the nature of how it's made, you can end up with some where the inside is like too thick, the inside is too like it collapsed, so it's like kind of gunky and like that. This was fucking perfect. It's the kind of thing where you should just bite through it and it should just like you should just go through it and it should be wonderful, and it was wonderful. But there are a lot of people who celebrate Valentine's Day as rote, right? Where if you don't bring your significant other a present on the 14th of February, then you are subjected to penalties. Which misses the entire fucking point, as far as I'm concerned. One of the reasons why we don't do Valentine's Day is because we tend to just do, right? Like, this is something I think that this other person I know would like, and then we get it, and it could be August 5th, right? Happy Valentine's Day, it's August 5th. This is the commodification of these holidays that some people rage against with like the commodification of Christmas is like you must get people Christmas presents or you don't actually love them. You must get people birthday presents or you don't actually love them. You must get people Valentine's Day presents or you don't actually love them. And there's a whole fucking marketing industry built around the idea of overspending for presents for people. Every time you see a car commercial where they bought a car as a gift for their significant other, that shit is wild. You have to be on a special kind of financial level to just buy a car without talking to the other person first. But this is what the companies do when it comes to the pizza party and the rewards for employees. It has become separated from what it. I am sure that the well-meaning individuals at the beginning of pizza parties at work, whenever that shit started, did it because they wanted to reward their employees and recognize their employees, and they thought they were doing a good thing. Because the psychology of everything is that humans want their labor to be relevant, to be validated, to be meaningful. And if you work for, a group that, like, if you work for a soup kitchen and you're feeding the homeless, you have those tiny bits of reward because we made this food, we are giving it to the people, these people have food. The people should not need that food and so on and so forth. But the point from your point of view is that you are doing the thing, right? Where if you're spending your day typing on a computer for 8 hours, it could be much more difficult to find a point of meaning to it all. Especially when you become very divorced from the human experience. If your job is like to process orders for a part and you're not even processing the orders for a part, you are moving the orders from one place to another and review. Let me tell you about this fucking job I had. There was like I went to work for a temp agency. If you can avoid working for a temp agency, avoid working for a temp agency, for a variety of reasons. If you really want to know, I'll tell you. But just trust me, you don't want to work for a temp agency. But I went to this job and it was shit would come over from Canada, right? And I would have to, by hand, look through the orders and what was delivered and look for variations. And then highlight that shit and it would go, that particular order would end up in, the special bin to be figured the fuck out. Otherwise, it went into the bin where everything was cool. And it was literally like 10 of us sitting around a table with these stacks of papers, just busted it out. And it wasn't like the experience was not terrible, right? Like when they talk about the idea of like, you know, we're a family culture, like I felt that because it was a bunch of old folks. I was much younger at the time, and it was a bunch of old folks and, you know, a couple younger folks, and we all just hung out, right? Like, and you know, we're all doing the boring thing. It was the service economy equivalent of all of us sitting around the thing after they bring in the corn from the fields and we're all shucking corn together, right? Like it was that the task itself is monotonous, but the task is almost irrelevant. You're just doing it, right? Like while hanging out with the people from your village kind of joint. It felt like that. And it was a good time. I actually missed that job to a certain extent, right? Like a little bit because of that experience. But that job, right? The actual job itself. If I had to do that in a cubicle, I would have lost my goddamn mind. And that job was so divorced from the human experience one on one like that that I wouldn't there's nothing about doing the work itself that really felt rewarding, except for the weird part of my brain that like will come into your office and alphabetize your files if they're not alphabetized properly, because there's just a right way that it needs to be, you know. But other than that, like there's no reward. So getting like, you know, food in that kind of thing, it makes sense, right? This is a reward for your part in doing the thing. But the problem is when you start doing things in that regard and you start putting the numbers into the book, then the numbers become more important than the reason that you originally intended to do the thing. And that's how you end up with the pizza parties that we have today. Right? Where, I mean, you might get fucked. You might be one of the last groups called to come get pizza, and it'll be cold because it's been sitting open on a table for an hour, and it's probably not that good pizza to begin with, you know. But pizza's weird like that. Everyone's got their own, you know, this is good pizza, this is not good pizza, and they will fight over it ad nauseum. So it's fundamental to solving the issue of human existence. Like everything needs to be fixed. Everything is fucked. And I don't mean that in a doomer sense. I mean that in a like, there are people who love cars and they love working on cars. And it doesn't matter how fucked up the car is, it's just more opportunity for them to fix the car. And that's what the enthusiasm that we need to feel to unfuck the shit that's all fucked. And if your shit has not been reprocessed since it was written, and it was written more than a decade ago, it needs to be reprocessed. I don't give a shit if it's your economic system. I don't give a shit if it's your political philosophy. The map is not the terrain. We are now a decade down the road from whenever that thing was put in place. We need to reassess whether or not it still fulfills its function. Right? This is not unreasonable. 30 years ago, 3 decades ago, 30 years ago, it was the 90s. If you compared 1993 to 2023, it's a whole new world. And with the AI and the internet and machine learning and robots, it's only going to get worse faster. When we look back, when these kids today on the Twitch are talking about old school stuff, they're talking about like 2015. You know? That's 2015 internet. That's 2010 internet. Occasionally, what up, Asper's Bonfire? Occasionally, I will play a music video at the beginning of the show that's from like 16 years ago. And it looks like shit because of how low the quality. I mean, time is an illusion, so you exist in the eternal now. It's the way this all works. But the shit won't render properly, right? How long ago did 1080p come out? And now, if your shit doesn't roll 4K, it starts to look old. A little soft around the edges. Little digital artifacts. Yeah, like shit keeps on moving, and it's only going to move faster. We need to become the tinkerers of everything that's around us because it makes sense to tinker with it. You know, for the younger folks, okay? Have you ever wondered why when you go to get gas for your car, assuming you have a car and you get gas for it and all those things, but when you go to get gas for your car, the gas says unleaded. You might know this already, in which case I'm the dumb old man who's trying to tell you something that you already know. That is true. That is true. There's a commentary there. I'm going to stick a pin in that. Let me finish my thought, and because there's a current discourse, and that statement is relevant to that current discourse. The reason why the gas pumps say unleaded is because we used to have 2 kinds of gas. We used to have 1 kind of gas, and that was leaded. And there's something about putting the lead in the gas that makes it do a thing. I learned it once, but didn't retain it. right? And then eventually we took the lead out of the gas, and taking the lead out of gas may have actually led to a decrease in violent crime around the country. It what you correlates, but it's not necessarily causative. But the evidence is strong, in my opinion. All right, but that unleaded is an artifact of that previous time. And I remember leaded and unleaded were your two options on the gas pump. And now the other thing is gone. Shit changes within your lifetime. And if I had a car that ran on leaded gasoline, I don't know. I'm not a car guy. But if a car that was created for leaded gasoline could tolerate unleaded gasoline and continue to function. So it doesn't matter how much I love that car anymore. A change had to be made. And the same is true of all our systems. They need to be reassessed for functionality and whether or not they meet the needs at the moment. And what prevents us from doing that is, to loop it back to the origin of this entire thing, is this concept of exploitative loops and perverse incentives. Our businesses are functioning to provide money for the shareholders as top priority, so everything else becomes irrelevant. What you do becomes irrelevant. You go wherever profit maximization is, or not even profit maximization necessarily, but stock buybacks, things like that. Tesla, right? Tesla, the alleged car company, doesn't make profits through making cars. It does it through carbon credits. There's something wrong here. John Leguizamo joked that he was sent to the country so he could munch on unleaded paint chips. There's a whole thing. Lead is a big deal. Briefly, to depart from what we're talking about, is there's a discourse going on, and it is as usual, there's people saying fucking shit and no one is actually talking to each other because it's happening on Twitter, which is the worst place for any kind of discourse to exist. But I imagine if it got to Twitch, which it probably will, it'll be just as fucky. Because again, y'all see the beginning of Reservoir Dogs? Right? There's a line from when he's handing out everyone's name, you Mr. Blonde, Mr. Blue, that shit. And he's talking about how if everyone gets to decide their own name, nobody knows each other, so no one's going to back down and everyone's going to want to be Mr. Black, right? That kind of thing. That's how people act in this debate and debate adjacent space on the internet. Nobody backs down because nobody knows each other. And So a thing happened, right? And either an individual or an op did some shit stirring. And there were people in support of and people against. All this is, except for the op part, like, you know, I can't even say it's fine. People are going to be for and against shit. This is not an issue. It's just the fact that it wasn't even a thing, and then it became a thing, and now people are dying on hills because of it. Like, if we go back 3 days, nobody's even having the discussion. Not even the champions of either side are having a discussion about this or bringing it up. And I'm not like, I don't have an opinion because I'm not part of either community. And like, it's the same. It's a thing that occurs every time somebody tries to, you know, work around with slogans that we have. And again, like, I don't imagine that anyone who, whether or not it even happened, right? Like, there are so many levels of potential disinformation that happened before we got to today that it's difficult to even assess whether or not any of this shit happened, or people are arguing over, you know, stuff that was manufactured from whole cloth. However, at no point in time did, whether it's a, you know, like, somebody stirring this shit because they are actually mad, righteous indignation, whether it's somebody stirring the shit just to stir the shit, whether someone's stirring the shit because of an op. Okay, whatever the initial conditions that created the current discourse are, no one makes you say something that's racist, right? No one ever makes you say anything that's misogynist. No one makes you say anything that's bigoted. And the way you determine whether or not you did that is when someone turns around and says, hey, you said thing, and that's racist. It's a real simple process. Like, yesterday, had a Rune on here. We were talking. I had in my title Indian and Southeast Asian politics and news. And Arun said South Asian. And I was like, oh, let me fix that. Done. Right? Now, I know Arun. Like, we have talked on multiple occasions, both on stream and off, you know, like, we've had conversations. So it is definitely easier for me to take criticism from, or critique. I prefer critique because criticism has a negative connotation, right? I don't want to give anyone criticism, but I might give you critique if you're interested in hearing it, kind of thing. And then later on, I referred to the place as Tamil, and he corrected me, and it was Tamil Nadu, and I corrected myself. Done, easy peasy, because like all my ego is set aside to be correct. I understand that on the internet that is more challenging because there are people who will toss around accusations just to toss around accusations and derail you because it's all about clout and imaginary internet points and whether or not you can assemble enough of them to win, I guess, or something. I'm not sure. I haven't figured out that part. But the incentives are there to not back down. And the people who could be more interested in educating you are under no obligation to do so. And it's a self-reinforcing circle, right? Because one of the worst things that you can do to a white person is tell them they're being racist. And they lose their goddamn minds. They will defend all sorts of stupid shit. We all know the joke, I can't be racist, I have a black friend. Like, that is the leading edge of all the bullshit. You have to be able to really step back and just, logically look at the situation, and it's like, oh, yeah, no, that is a thing. That casual racism that your Nana is doing is actually unacceptable and should be called out and needs to be corrected. But it requires, there's no internet points. People feel uncomfortable telling their Nana that, she's being racist. Because she's your grandmother, she exists in a hierarchy. She probably, if you have a close relationship, she probably helped raise you. There's a whole bunch of factors there. All of which don't fucking matter because what really matters is that Nana's being fucking racist and needs to be called out. And like that. I have my familial attachments that are by choice, right? Like, I have a group of friends I consider my brothers. I have a brother who I consider a brother and another one that we don't talk about anything at all, ever. Most of my cousins, a bunch of my cousins are cops. So you can imagine that is not a conversation that really can happen. So I just don't, and I go on about my business. I don't have that attachment that blood means anything in that regard. I'll make an effort to try and teach you, but if you aren't willing to learn and you just want to get defensive about it, then I just need to walk away from you. But by the same token, like my aunt's platform is a handful of people, right? So just letting my aunt, who is unwilling to educate herself and unwilling to learn, letting her go off and, be upset about me to a handful of cousins and, other aunts and shit like that. There's, it's whatever. There's a thing that happens when you are on the internet where we feel that we can't let that go. And to a certain extent, that is 100% true, right? Because of the normalization of certain things we want normalized. Right? My stance on bigot wizards and people who play bigot wizards is harsher than most. But it's a simple calculus for me. Right? In that case, I'm not going to argue with you. I am going to say my piece, and you can listen to me or not. But we can't. So I would prefer that you listen to me on that particular subject, because that was an easy one, and you missed it. But you have someone saying something and someone responding to that something, and then a series of double downs happens. And there's no, once you get past like the second or third level of a particular thread of, call and response like that, it's over. It's game over. That's going, there's nothing you can do to make either of those people back away and actually have a rational discussion about it, right? Even if one of them is clearly right and one of them is clearly wrong, with evidence to back it up, that's not going to happen. And that's all I have to say about that discourse. I personally think it was started as an op. I think that someone took the bait. I think that people's responses on both sides could have been worded better. But that, what's your goal kind of thing. But then once it comes down to it, it's like, you know, 1 second. Okay, so yeah, I think it started as an up. It was created to sow dissent. I think that people worded their answers poorly on both sides, um, but that ultimately, again, wording your shit poorly is not the same as like not is saying something racist, right? Like, if you don't know that a particular axiom, a particular metaphor, whatever, that's in common usage is in fact racist, you can, to a certain extent, be forgiven for not knowing that, you know? Like, one thing, like marijuana, the word marijuana is racist. It was created in order to demonize um, Mexican people, right? Um, really go hit up James from the internet, and he can provide you with a whole education. Cannabis, call it cannabis, right? Now there are a bunch of people who say marijuana is still, and like that, and it is one of those. It's pervasive. I don't want to put it on a scale or anything, and like, because I don't know, because I am not Mexican. Which is ultimately what, when someone tells you that something is racist or something is, offensive to their group, why you need to listen, because you don't have a frame of reference. And if somebody says, "Hey, that's racist," instead of saying, "I am not racist, ergo to wit, this thing I said cannot be racist," you need to be like, what about that is racist? Like, open a dialogue, have a discussion to understand. And this is why I don't respect none of y'all. Like, not the people in the discourse. Some of them I do respect. I'm talking about the debate people with your bullshit debates, right? Like, you're not. You have no desire to understand anything. You don't even understand what you're talking about. You can't logically form your way through your own fucking arguments. It's fucking maddening. Anyways, enough about that. I went on way too long. U.S. issues declaration on responsible use of AI in the military. U.S. government on Thursday issued a declaration on the responsible use of artificial intelligence in the military, which would include human accountability. We invite all states to join us in implementing international norms as it pertains to military development and use of AI and autonomous weapons, said Bonnie Jenkins, Undersecretary of State for Arms Control. Jenkins was speaking at the International Summit on responsible use of military AI in The Hague, Netherlands, the first of its kind. And of course, we have to register in order to get the information. But what does that mean? You had, like, we used to not, like, we weren't going to militarize space. We weren't going to do space war shit. And now we have Space Force. So it's difficult to take the lead, for the U.S. to take the lead on something that it just blatantly is going to break at the first time it's inconvenient. So yeah. Um Not gonna lie, feeling a little tired. I'm surviving on an unfortunate amount of caffeine and stick-to-itiveness. And I'm like, I feel like I want to spend some more time working on some of these ideas for tomorrow to develop them out a little bit. So I'm gonna take my 3 viewers and I'm gonna take you over to Levelheads. I appreciate you all. Thanks for listening to me run my mouth. Drink your water, eat some food, take your meds if you forgot. Shuggy loves you. So do I. I'll see you tomorrow.